Yeah, everybody see that?
Yeah.
All right, mainnet. Here we go, mainnet phase one. So if you're not working on phase one of mainnet, you need to ask yourself the question, why am I working on what I'm working on, right? And it may not necessarily be hard and fast, but you should definitely ask that question and ask your peers too, to make sure that you're working on the right things. I'd say based on this chart here, we're about 2/3 of where we should be. We're supposed to be matching this yellow line here as far as progress towards our estimated effort in order to complete phase one. We're still targeting end of May 31st or end of May. Major issues, obviously, are going to be the bridge, are at the top of the list here. We've got major epics around the bridge, and it seems to be the thing that we need to focus on the most, that along with contracts. So bridge, contracts, and its stability are probably the top three in order to keep going with mainnet launch. So if you also too, I like the estimates that are in here. Looks like mostly complete with the estimates for scope. This is great. And let's see, we got assembly script. We've got one here that needs to be estimated, but it's currently in the backlog. So if that's the case. Oh, also too, if there are, this is something I learned from other software projects, if you have a list of items that are estimated, always pick the longest, most complicated one first and knock that one out. It seems to be the best strategy. So, I mean, you can go around picking up small little bugs here and there, little fixes, but if we don't make big progress on the more complicated issues that are critical for launching, we will fail. So let's make sure that you prioritize those first. So unless there are questions on this, I think we should just basically drop into the team updates and keep a maniacal focus on making this chart converge for May 31st. Also, before we get started, I'd like to introduce, I know this is a public meeting, but I'd like to introduce Sandy. Sandy, if you're on this call, I haven't seen him yet, but he is a new release engineer. He is starting today. His effort is, his goal is to make all releases as stable as possible and make sure, again, the trains run on time, fully tested. And our strategy here is we're only going to ship software that works, right? In other words, we're only going to, just like the art of war, never fight a battle unless you know you're going to win it. So we're going to do that exactly the same thing here, which is we're only going to ship software we know is going to win. So that's Sandy's goal. So please welcome Sandy to the team, and he's the first member of our official release engineering team. And he'll be working with Bo and Bowen over the next several weeks to get orientated and then working on our overall release engineering process. So welcome, Sandy. Sandy, are you here? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for introducing me. So yeah, thank you for having me here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
So before NIR, I was working at Facebook as part of the release engineering team, releasing Facebook web essentially. So yeah, joined today, first day. So that's pretty much it about me.
Thank you, Sandy. Really happy to have you here. Your skills are much needed. And so everybody welcome him. And he's gonna be reaching out mostly to the chain team up front. And also Max and Kendall, you should definitely connect as well. All right, let's get going. Unless people have any questions so far? Okay. All right, Max, you want to go first?
Sure, let me present.
I will stop.
All right, I also had this open, but I also had an estimate clicked here, and it points to June 29, which is, I mean, this tool is quite dumb. That's why it says beta, but still. Yeah, gonna open our community middleware where we took the notes. So just like Deon said, at least for the middleware, the top two priorities are the contracts and the bridge. One big priority that kind of went under the radar, but it was mostly thanks to Nikolai, because there was so little discussion around it that he just like went and implemented it himself. But had he not done that, we probably would have blocked the phase 1 launch, because we needed important, like very precise fees and be confident in them. And so what happened is Nikolai just did it by himself, and that wasn't really discussed much, exactly because he did it all by himself. But if we didn't have Nikolai, that would have been, you know, a third large project that we would have been working together on. So kudos to Nikolai for finishing that. Yeah, and then two other big projects that Demon started working on, the contracts for the audit. So Evgeny, Mikhail, Alexei, and Willem are all working on that. And we are currently, as far as I understand, we are on track with the audit. They are already reviewed one of the small contracts, the fungible token contract. They're reviewing staking pool. They have some question. Bowen is also helping us a lot. He's participating in all these discussions. He is answering the questions of the security audit company. So also huge kudos to Bowen for helping with that. And as they're reviewing the contracts, Evgeny and the team are actually preparing the new contracts for them. So we are on track there. With the bridge, we had a delay by approximately 1 to 2 weeks, because we had first a bug in the ETH2 Neo Prover. It's a contract in Rust, and also the corresponding relayer. And me and Anton spent several days, if not week, trying to debug it. It's quite complex stuff, because Ethereum has its own serialization format. All these proofs have their own format. The specs are sometimes ambiguous or contradicting. And so what happened, Alex stepped in and he fixed it within several hours, showing his incredible skill. And yeah, huge kudos to Alex Gidanov for just like helping us out here. Then the other big thing that we need to take care of, two Solidity contracts. One of them is mostly written, which is basically the light client of Near implemented in Ethereum. We kind of went there with challenge approach, because we cannot directly verify all the ED signatures or the header in Ethereum. It's too expensive. They don't have precompile. So there is like a lockup period. There is a challenge thing happening there. And actually I talked to some of our partners and potential partners, and all of them are fine if our availability of the tokens, Near tokens on Ethereum side is like half a day plus several hours day. Like they are very used to Plasma, where you have like 7-day lookup time, so availability time. So they're all totally fine if we even make it 1 day. So this current design works well. We also need help from Evgeny Kapun. We already communicated, because it appears there is no full implementation of ED 25519 signature verification in Solidity. Like there are scraps of the code here and there, but there is no full implementation. So what needs to happen is that Evgeny Kapun needs to tell Anton exactly what to write, and Anton would write it in Solidity. Like Evgeny needs to guide him for all the math of the ED signature, and Anton would implement it. It doesn't have to be efficient. It can be just like as inefficient as we need for just to make it fast. So the other important things are we have some blockers for phase 1. One of those blockers actually Nikolai is working on, which is upgrading our WASMer, because they fixed several bugs that we found in the infrastructure. And they also made something possible that wasn't possible before, which is important for us because of how panics are handled. Like without that, we also cannot launch. And less important stuff, which is being worked on its own, because worked on its own, which is standalone runtime, because we use standalone runtime to actually test some of the contracts. So Alexei and Vlad Frolov and Willem finished some major components of standalone runtime, and they already use it for the staking pool and other contracts. So that's pretty much it. What are the main focus right now for the middleware? I can do a quick round from what people are working on. So Nikolai, he now switches his attention from his focus from the fees towards familiarizing with our infrastructure overall. Vlad, he's still split between the RPC, Explorer, helping with the runtime, who's standalone runtime, and like general refactor. He's reviewing lots of pull requests. We also made Vlad Frolov co-own most of the runtime and core creates together with me and Evgeny, so that we don't bottleneck pull requests there. So Anton implemented these challenges and lockup stuff for the Ethereum near to Ethereum client. And yeah, now he basically needs Evgeny Kapon to implement the ED25519 signature verification in Solidity. Evgeny, he's running the whole show of this contract audit, security audit review. And he's working with Misha and Bohan also helping, as I said, and Willem and Alexei. And currently it's a staking pool and also lockup and vesting contract, I think. That's what they're finishing right now. I have created separate issues, as you can see here in the Zen Hub, for each of our contracts. Implementation, spec, and tests, all of them are separate issues. So because they have different estimates, for instance, for lockup contract, you see this is like 21. So this is 21 approximately days by 3 people. It's like 1 week of work for 3 people, approximately. But it's not a blocker. I mean, as I said, security audit company can start reviewing the stuff without waiting for us to fully complete it. So I split those issues here, as you can see, following Evgeny's and the team's estimates on how much time all of them are gonna take. Alexei, he also helping Evgeny with the test for the staking pool. He finished the standalone runtime, more or less. And yeah, he's just participating in some discussions, but most of his attention is on helping with the contracts, just as William is doing. So thanks a lot to Alexei and William for dropping everything, and also Misha and working on the initial contracts, because that's a lot of work. I was debugging Ethereum to near prover unsuccessfully until Alex came in and fixed it for us. And so what I'm doing is now I'm going to be actually doing productionization, adding more tests to it, just to make sure that the test actually, the Alex's fix actually holds. I'm going to add many more tests for the bridge, and discuss also with both some DevOps for the bridge, because we also need to productionize it too. And what I also did, I started giving out some of the pieces of work to people on Gitcoin. So one person is already doing some small stuff for the near SDK in Rust. And that basically us moving into the area where a lot of the infrastructure work is going to be done by the community. This is important for scalability and being distributed. And also regarding the security bounties, we decided that we're going to reward security bounties through the Gitcoin too. This is for legal and accounting reasons, because we don't want people to just like transfer tokens to people directly on their wallets. We need some third party responsible for KYC or whatnot to take care of it. So we're going to do all the security bounties through the Gitcoin from now on. And we already had one security bounty that we rewarded like that. Another small things, we're gonna have a small 15-minute meeting about the receipt congestion this week. It's gonna involve Bohan, maybe Evgeny, Nikolai. So this was discussion that we had mostly around sharded system, but I think that this is the same problem that we're gonna have also with a single shard and transactions and receipts. So just to make sure we don't need to completely change our architecture of the runtime after phase 1, I suggest to have this discussion now, because I think like this is a huge problem and we need to find some way to address it. Yeah, so
this will be discussed in the research meeting, protocol research
meeting. That's great. That's a great idea. Let's discuss the protocol research meeting. Yeah, because I think this congestion attack that we discussed is applicable to a single sharded system, and people can just stall our single shard after phase 1 easily. And yeah, everything else you can read yourself. there's like small notes here from people, and not worth actually bringing it up right now. Vlad is onboarding Bogdan to work on the network indexer. This is a big one, since now Vlad has more time to work on the runtime and core. All right, this is it from the middleware. One thing that we haven't discussed yet, but we will probably with Peter and the DevX team, is how we actually communicate the changes in the middleware, or like core infrastructure, to the DevX in such a way that documentation is getting updated timely. So this is some discussion that we briefly had with Evgenia, but we're probably also going to have with the Peter and DevX team too. That's it from me. Anyone has any questions? Sounds like no. All right, thanks guys.
So sorry, they are making mainnet phase 1, right? But I'm kind of concerned about phase 0 because it doesn't seem like we can run phase 0 for now.
Mm-hmm. So you're referring to like recent crashes?
Yeah, like what is anybody on it? Like what is the status of that? Because that's kind of like the most important issue. Not like our previous phase isn't live fully, basically.
I mean, so we're investigating the issue. The problem is that it's really hard to understand what happened. So I think Misha and the KPR is working on a storage testing infrastructure that would allow us to catch inconsistencies in storage and state.
But we also added more tracing.
Have they observed this issue again?
No. We didn't observe it last week.
If that's the case, then why is Vlad? What is it that you're referring to? Because if we've only observed it once.
Well, actually, no, we observed it multiple times, but not last week. I mean, the fact that we didn't observe it last week doesn't mean we only observed it once before.
But I'm curious as to what Vlad's concerned.
Did we restart beta
So
network?
my concern is that we cannot run anything on mainnet. That's my concern.
So to be specific, the concern is our stable is a month old.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's the same concern, right? Like, I mean, right now we still don't know what happened there. So, yes, I mean, yes, it is a month old, but also that we still haven't figured out like what happened there.
Sure, but like realistically speaking, like even if let's say we did fix this issue, like in one of the fixes we've done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that is an issue. Like, yeah, but I'm just saying it's also a slightly separate one.
Okay, so but what is the resolution here?
Like the fact that it's 1 month old. I mean, like we're
no.
like,
What is it for mainnet? Like, should we turn on back all the stuff and hammer mainnet? While nobody else is using it, we should be hammering it as much as possible. But it just doesn't make any sense to hammer a month's old code.
We can do that if we're fine, if like it potentially trigger this problem.
So what is disabled right now? What sort of hammering is different compared to 2 weeks ago?
So I mean,
we had zero transactions since we found this problem, or like surfaced this problem.
But what transactions did we stop sending?
Well, Vlad was sending like just pinging transaction. You can open Explorer and see pretty much. But also like I was preparing to do some stuff like multi-sigs and link drops and stuff like this.
But Bowen, is the current run that is running?
We were sending transaction with current time.
I mean, I cannot hear like two of you speaking at the same time.
I speak first. Bowen, the current run that we're running, does it have tracing that we added?
Yes.
Okay. So at least we will know what
mainnet doesn't.
Right, mainnet. But I think Alex is asking about beta net.
No, I'm asking about the one we plan to start hammering. So the mainnet.
Oh no. Because it runs, yeah, but as Ilya pointed out, like it runs code that's 1 month old. So yeah.
Yeah, the mainnet
So,
definitely. So we should not hammer anything that does not have tracing. If it goes down again, it doesn't give us any information. So if we want to start hammering it, we should apply the patch which traces it. It's one line change.
well, ideally we should release a new stable. That's pretty much the.
All that.
Yeah, I mean the current plan is to release stable on May 20th. So.
Okay. I mean, I do want to like circle back on that a little bit, and like we should accelerate. I mean, so two things. One is we should turn on backward compatibility test as like mandatory test now, and then accelerate the like release for non-protocol changing changes. Meaning that like it should not be taking like 4 weeks to release stable.
We can do any cadence we feel comfortable with, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
I think specifically it's a question of layering things over, right? It's like we want to run for a week BetaNet, make sure that everything works. If we didn't find any issues, then that is promoted into stable, right? Like right now we kind of
Yeah, I mean,
right now we would release into stable a week before like a previous week's BetaNet, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I in general agree, but I think there are also stuff we need to figure out. I think we can take this offline.
Okay.
Can I ask a crazy question? But Vlad, what is your opinion of BetaNet?
But I think BetaNet is better than current testnet, and we should upgrade because it has less issues, less practical UX issues of this.
Well, that's a good sign. So it's the 18th. We have a week to go at least before we start to consider upgrading. Should we do it sooner rather than later? Is that what we're asking?
Are you talking about mainnet or testnet? I mean, the upgrade is going to happen on May 20th, as I said.
So it's May what time? May 20th?
20th.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So that's only 2 days away.
Yeah.
Okay.
But mainnet will still take another week, right? At least.
Oh yeah,
Based on-
yeah.
All right. Well, let's take this offline, but yeah, let's solve this at least like with a clear plan and publish that.
Thank you, Vlad, for bringing that up. It's important that we pay attention to these details. All right, anything else for Max today? Okay, Kendall, can you go next?
Yep. All right, 1 second. All right, let's start with Explorer. Cool. So on the Explorer side, yeah, I kind of mentioned this a few times. Basically, there's like 2 major goals as we're like sort of in mainnet now. There's stability and performance, and then displaying more data. And I added this, but this is becoming more of a priority, is like organizing the existing data that we have. So that's more on like UX and UI. Max kind of touched on how the network indexer is one of the major initiatives. It's going to like play very nicely into stability and performance. So actually I had a question here that I wanted to bring up. So I saw there was some commenting around like RPC fuzz testing. And Frol, you mentioned that like this could like take precedence over the network indexer potentially if we wanted it in phase 1. So I was just curious, do we have any updates on, or is that like needs to be discussed further on whether or not that's in phase 1 and if that we should expect for that to delay the network indexer?
Yeah,
Well,
I think
as far as
yeah.
it seems like a very important issue because it's the main like near core side, whereas network indexer sort of a side project.
Okay.
So
Okay, yeah, we can discuss that further in like Explorer Sync. Makes sense. So on the network index side, I think the most important part of it, in my mind at least, for the Explorer itself now is, so a couple of the issues, like one of the major things we want to do in the Explorer is display these like locked token balances. And the way that the delegation contract works, where we're going to have validators deploy one contract, like basically a validator deploy a contract, their own version of the delegation contract. We either need to query every single one of these contracts or like basically track those balances like block by block. And our current plan with the network indexer is to basically do it block by block, which I think is like cleaner and at least makes like it easier to implement on the interface side. So delaying that does mean either we need to go with the other option, like querying all of these contracts, or just wait a little bit longer before we can display that information. So that would be like the only consideration I would say on like the Explorer side and the timing of that. But yeah, so three indications on the things that we're working on UI-wise, other than just organizing existing data. Indicating finality, this has come up a lot. Obviously, we want to have some indication on both the transaction and block level, as whether or not the block is finalized, and transactions will of course be like sort of like flowing downward from that, like if it's included in a finalized block or not. So we have some ways that we're going to indicate that in the UI. We decided to remove transactions per second right now. The reason for this is that, it sort of seems like it's mostly a vanity metric, depending on like, at least right now, when we don't have a whole lot of throughput. It's not particularly useful for like measuring network load because there just isn't a whole lot of network load. And so for now we've removed it, but once that metric becomes more meaningful, we'll consider re-adding it. And Ilya had a suggestion about like actually just showing like total transaction count. I think that's something that we'll probably do. And then, yeah, I mean, we really want to show these delegated and locked balances. I think there's even a world in which we show it in the Explorer before we show it in the wallet. But that is going to be dependent on whether or not we get network indexer running through them later, or we have to come up with like a kind of suboptimal workaround.
So actually, how does that work? What if the like, for example, the validators change the staking contract and then they use like different method names? I mean, I don't know what you use to index it, but
well, yeah, I mean, if that happens, we're screwed. Like, so this is why that's not.
I mean, I think that will probably happen because we are.
No. That's why we have standards. Standards are, so that everyone in the ecosystem knows how things should work. If they use different API, nobody will be able to use them. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
no wallets will use them. No, like our existing stuff will use them. So whatever.
There definitely is some like a social contract. Oh, well, it's basically more like, yeah, if they want their stuff displayed correctly in other apps, then they have no choice. So.
I mean, we have a standard that's literally like, your C20, this is the same. We have NAP, whatever, for the staking.
All right. Any other questions on Explorer before we move on to Wallet? All right. Okay, so yeah, in the wallet, there's definitely been some changes around prioritization here that are important to note. So the things that are currently in progress, email and phone verification. We actually had a couple of like small issues in the hackathon recently about like people not necessarily getting the email and phone. So this is actually going to help that in a big way. Displaying locked token balances as well. We're starting off just with like staked and the sort of minimum balance stake. So those will be coming live soon. And then we're working on ledger support this week. Vlad basically submitted the app for review on the actual ledger side, which is gonna be really awesome. Hopefully we can get that in a workable state pretty soon. And we're working on like adding it to the UI, making it clear for users this week. Looking ahead, so I break this out into like mainnet launch to-dos, as in like, we need to do these things in order to like have it work for mainnet at all. And then I added on here like to support the token sale, which might coincide pretty nice. Like we'll see what the timelines are of like whether that's the first launch of the wallet. Realistically, we'll probably launch it at least internally a bit before that. So not including the token sale, something that's a little bit blocked is handling these limited access keys. And what I mean by this is like, if our users' tokens are in a contract, then we're probably going to distribute limited access keys to them instead of full access keys. And we need to handle like basically signing through sort of like a proxy or a function call, as opposed to like signing directly like we're doing in the wallet now. So like to discuss that with probably Eugene and Ilya and Vlad this week. Error handling, and like this is sort of the timeout issue, and then also like how we actually display it to users if they need to resubmit transactions or not. Displaying transactions as pending so that like they don't submit or resubmit a transaction when it's actually at a pending state as opposed to like a failed state. That's in progress as well. Communicating security expectations, just being very clear to them. This will probably involve something like a modal that pops up like, hey, this isn't particularly safe, but if you want to use it, here's how you can do that. And then, as we talked a little bit about last week, just like communicating finality in the token balances. So this actually like will play pretty nicely with the way that we're displaying lock token balances. So pretty confident in that solution. And then what is rapidly becoming a major priority, and will probably take precedence over a few of these things other than limited access keys, which is a hard requirement, will be some sort of like two-factor authentication. And that'll basically work through like a multi-sig pattern. Still figuring out the details there, but I hope to figure out those details this week so that we can start implementing very shortly. And yeah, those are the priorities and what we're working on currently on the wallet and the Explorer. Any questions on the wallet side or just in general?
So I figure out this issue is like people cannot recover their account. Like I think a lot of validators get mad at us because they cannot recover their accounts.
Yeah, I was actually going to address that. So for the most part, yeah, I think there's two components there. One might be an issue that we haven't actually been able to reproduce. I'm hoping at the very least, if like we'll deploy email and phone verification, that'll at least confirm we're getting like the right emails, and we can then either like more like clearly pin down whether or not these emails are going out, and at least to the right email addresses. I think the second component and what my hypothesis and why this has been happening is more to do with like we have this very suboptimal URL state right now where like we kept the nearprotocol.com domains alive and like functional. And the intention was to keep that during the hackathon, just because like there are some things that could break or people would get confused if like they had to like migrate during the hackathon if they created an account before we switched to near.org. The hackathon ends tomorrow. So the plan is to just like basically put up a landing page on Near Protocol that explains like this domain is no longer valid. If you actually care about your account, here's how you migrate. If not, just go create a new account on the near.org ones. And then it sounds like on the DevX side, we've mostly changed over to near.org. We probably need, I think we need to update the docs still. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, any DevX guys, but I believe that, okay, they're moved to. All right, so I believe that we should be golden once we do that. I mean, golden. I think that should cut out just about every issue that I've seen. They mostly pertain to that, so. Probably worth doing a little bit of like a retro on how we got to that just to make sure it doesn't happen again. But I don't think we'll be changing URLs again, so it should be okay. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Anything else?
Since you mentioned it, Kendall, the whole error handling and timeouts, that's a really big deal for DevX. So if there's like one,
yeah.
that we would love, I just want to bubble that out.
Yeah, I absolutely. So that is still, we're still a little bit blocked on that, on like, well, whether or not a timeout is a timeout. And that's a near core thing. What exactly is the status of that, like Bowen or guys?
Yeah, sorry, I sort of like dropped the ball, like, or like rather I sort of delegate the issue to Alex Day to handle because he wrote this error generating schema macro that I didn't have time to investigate how to use it. So like, yeah, I think he will be like working on finishing the like final part of it.
So Alexei is working on P0, which is the initial contracts testing. If someone wants to finish it. I mean, this macro is not too complicated to understand. You just need to run it.
I can help there.
Cool, thanks a lot.
Okay, anything else for Kendall today? All right, Alex, you want to go next? Let's get it off.
Yep. So we have a couple big issues in chain. One is the one we already discussed, that we have occasional storage inconsistencies issues. To that end, Misha and Alex Kuprin, they work towards building a storage consistency test. There's a spec already out, and there's some infrastructure already out in the PR. The second issue is that recently we had a beta net issue where we restarted a node and the network almost went down. It became super slow, and the reason for that is that we still have not fixed the issue that state sync or in general responding to requests can take resources necessary for block production.
It actually happened on testnet, not beta.
Sorry, yes, testnet. So to that end, the primary way we were planning to test it, and so in both cases, fixing is one part, but the bigger part is testing, because we need to know whether we fixed it and how we do not reproduce it, how we do not regress it again. So there, we do need very large states to reproduce those issues. So Marcelo has been working for a while now on trying to figure out how to make a test that can generate large state in a meaningful amount of time. So I think right now we have a clear path, but also to that end, I think we should resurrect the efforts to build a mock net. So we did not, it's like a fresh idea, so nothing was done on that end yet. Besides that, we're working on stabilizing and testing stuff. Nothing new there. We're mostly, so far, we're working on stabilizing network and syncing. Also, Michael started looking deeply into the chunk distribution production, so sharding. I think that's it.
Okay, comment. So we have a tool that can generate as large state as you need. We used it for the fees estimation and can generate up to the Ethereum size state for each single shard.
How quickly?
Probably a million accounts. It's probably going to be like 20 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't, depends on your laptop.
Some like concern with using this tool. Sorry, I don't remember the exact concern, but I think he raised some concern with this too. Yeah, maybe it's around like time, or I don't quite remember.
20 minutes sounds reasonable. Okay, I will bring it up. I will discuss it with Marcelo.
I mean, you can always use 100,000 accounts and it's going to be 2 minutes.
I think the concern, well, I think that might not be large enough. He wants something at least like 100 megabytes of state or something like that.
All right, let's discuss it offline.
Oh, I actually remember what Marcelo's concern was, is that this state is generated for Genesis and he wanted to generate it for the specific blocks so that actually block sync is happening. So the modification to this tool is needed, but let's take it offline, yes.
Yeah, thank you. All right, any other questions for Alex? All right, Peter, you here, DevX?
Yep, sorry, I was muted. Sure, main update is not gonna be super engineering for now. Right now, we're mainly focused on a lot of support and partner engineering stuff. So we're looking into integrating Tessa-B, box score. We're actually looking into how we're gonna be able to get Stardust on mainnet, or if not Stardust, somebody to actually launch on our mainnet that exists right now. So that's sort of the core of it. Outside of that, there's been some issues raised from the hackathon. I think the most embarrassing one is that we don't have transfer exposed in assembly script. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. Yeah, so that's a huge facepalm. Sorry, well, we do, but it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not a high level API. So you can get the job done. There's also a workaround where you can send a transaction in, like an arbitrary transaction, and attach an amount. So it's not like a total L. It's just that this was highlighting, you know, as we work through this stuff, when we put our stuff in front of real world people and they try to do things, you know, we're still not quite there. It's better, but we're not quite there. So I want to push forward on that of, like, you know, really user driven features and this emphasis on partner engineering. Right. So specifically what that's looking like, let me actually pull up the board. Here, let me see. Is implementing the token standard. So I finished the NFT really pared down token standard this weekend. We should have that implemented by, I think, tomorrow, if we're on track. And we've got the fungible token example going out as well. And then we have, let me double check. Let me see. Oh yeah, then just some bugs that were to do with, like, random cleanup stuff in shell. After that, there's going to be a big push in actually implementing the shell NEP. So probably iteratively rather than completely pulling the teeth out and replacing it with new teeth. we're going to implement each feature in the framework that we're already using for Shell. And then we want to do a sweep of our APIs and SDKs, basically just clear out anything that's been sitting there for more than a couple of weeks, which is long overdue. And then prioritize stuff based on customer requests. So the theme, if you need to take home from this, is basically listen to what our customers want, go and ask them again, hey, are you sure you want this? And then implement those things that they've wanted for a while that we haven't really gotten to because we've been putting out fires.
I do want to mention this. I believe the issue
access keys, right? Delete access keys?
No, sorry. I was talking about the assembly script transfer, like that thing. I believe I mentioned that in multiple places back in January. I used a documentation that contained this issue, and I definitely like posted in the chats. And I mean, like, it seems like we should get better at like not letting this fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been multiple months.
Yep.
Yeah, so on this side, I mentioned that in DevX chat, and I put it on GitHub for DevX, but I think it should be like for everyone. Let's not use Slack for discussions, and let's not use Slack for raising issues. Let's use GitHub, because if you are found an issue and you just post it in GitHub, post it in Slack, yes, there might be some discussion happen, but at the end it will get lost. And you know, the probability of action being taken on that is like, you know, very unpredictable. GitHub has, you know, like we have flows around GitHub to actually get shit done. So we should be using that. So here's like the process in general that I mentioned, but like overall is, you know, if we see a question that is asked by us, by anyone externally, we should like make sure we have a documentation for it. Or if it's like, if they're asking something that is not, they're not supposed to be asking because it should work already, we should have an issue, and then kind of like just file them, and then we can triage them and like rank them, etc. And ideally, if you're responding to someone, just file an issue on document, like somebody asks a question, there is no documentation for this, file an issue on documentation with an answer, and then just link them to that. At least, like, you don't need to make it pretty or whatever, just write it in the issue, the answer that you would chat them anyway, and just link them to that. Because like, at least this leaves a trace of this, and then like that can be, you know, merged into documentation later. So like an example, I'll just ping in the chat with example of this. Peter, you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah, I thought you were going. So just to Bowen's point, I mean, yeah, that's totally fair, Bowen. I remember you mentioning it back in January. I think somehow I just thought this was done because it was, I think multiple people thought it was done, right? It was one of those things that is miscommunicated. Someone else thought someone else had documented it or added the high level thing, right? Like months ago, because it seems like such a low-hanging fruit and a really common use case. But yeah, so I want to acknowledge, Bowen. Yeah, I remember you mentioning it. I remember this came up months ago. That sucks. The good piece of this is, yeah, to Ilya's point, now, like the pain of this embarrassment for me makes me want to really not have this happen again. So tune into all hands. I've got a full presentation of basically something revisiting something I brought up in Argentina. And also there's going to be a new public DevX roadmap that's more high level than just the DevX board. So if you're overwhelmed by the DevX roadmap in ZenHub because there's just like a million issues and it's hard to get something noticed, this is the high level direction of like what can we be, what should we be looking at, and it'll include a process for addressing community issues as well, right? It's not just going to be one person checking a chat and bringing it in. So I will be talking about it in all hands.
I do also want to highlight we have almost 60 issues in documentation. Like that's just general, like.
Yep.
I think if every single person on this call goes and like closes one issue and documents the thing they're most familiar with, like that would cut it by half, and then do it again, and we're at 0. Simple solutions to hard problems.
All right. Any other questions for Peter? Okay. All right. I think it covers all the teams. And any other issues for today at all? We've got 10 minutes left for the next meeting. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to everybody from the community who joined this too. And whoever watches it on YouTube, come join us at NEAR. All right. Take care, everybody.
Well, thanks,
Bye.
Damon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.